Welcome to The Noble Marriage, where we have real, raw, and relatable conversations all about life and marriage. I'm Adele.
I'm Travis. It's good to see you today, and it's good to see you.
Thanks. It's good to see you too.
I'm ready for episode 13. Prepared for it. Last week's, our last episode, what was it about?
It was all about addiction, and man, it was a powerful episode. So if you know someone who is struggling with addiction, or you yourself have walked through addiction, or maybe still walking through that, you're going to want to go back and check out that episode from the previous week.
Yeah, and you're not alone. Man, addiction really impacts a lot of people, and if you're a family member of someone in addiction, it's impacting you as well. I think it could be a great episode that could bring healing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
This week's... Oh, sorry.
You are jumping way ahead, babe.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm trying to keep up with you. First,
I told you I was going to be really good at staying on track.
Yeah.
Except I'm
skip a few things. That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to welcome you if this is your first time here. We are sharing our story from our book that we wrote in hopes that you will get hope for your life and your marriage, as well as healing and freedom as we walk through our own story and share from our own experiences. We just hope that you'll put yourself and your own life into that so that you can really get all that God has for you to get from this podcast.
That's really good, because our story is definitely not your story, but our story is a story that you can find examples in for yourself.
Yeah. So if you have struggles in marriage or life, you're in the right place. Welcome.
Welcome. Hey, can we start with gratitude, or am I going too fast there too?
Well, let's talk about what is next week, and then let's do gratitude.
Yes. So as Adele's talking about the book and bringing this story to you guys on a routine basis, it's really not about the marriage. It's really about the individual heart, how we show up as whole and complete individuals, the way God created us to be. Mm-hmm. So that in a marriage, we're not trying to complete each other. There's these things I feel like I'm at a loss at in my life, and I need you to complete that part of me. Instead, when we come whole and complete, we're actually complementing each other in the marriage. And as you're going through these episodes, I think you're going to find more and more tools, tips,
conversations.
Awareness.
Yeah.
A new awareness, that's what I'm really getting at, of how you can show up as a whole and complete individual.
Right, because it wasn't the problems that were in our marriage. It was the wounds in our heart that were festering that led us down a path that was destructive individually. Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, it impacts the marriage when that's happening. And so, we just want you to consider, what did you bring to your marriage? What was in your individual heart? And how is your marriage individually struggling right now? Those are the kind of things that we're going to answer on this channel.
You're going to want to stick around throughout this. You're going to want to stick around through this episode, because we're really going to hit on friendships, how to have good, healthy, God-honoring friendships that would be important in our life.
Yeah, and maybe you're thinking right now, I have good friendships. I don't really need to make changes. We just want to invite you to consider that there may be a new perspective that you'll get from this episode, that maybe there's some things you haven't thought of, or some things that we bring up that are new insights on how you can have better friends and be a better friend. We just want to thank those of you who are already following along our story. It really means so much to us. We're seeing so many comments come in from marriages that are really hurting, who are finding healing through our channel. And we just want to thank you for sharing that with us. It really gives us insight on what to bring to you as our audience. And so That's actually where this episode is coming from is it happened to be the next part in our book. And we are getting a lot of comments about things like that.
It's interesting whenever we're talking about something, how I believe the Holy Spirit just puts reminders in my life. Like, for instance, this is about friendships, relationships. And it's interesting how many conversations I've had over the last 2 weeks that revolve around healthy friendships and what that is like and what's needed in a healthy friendship. And I'm like, man, God is not a God of coincidence. It's not a coincidence that I'm having so many of these conversations just prior to having this.
Right. And then we sit down and we're like, what's the next part?
Yeah.
Friendships, of course. So we also want to invite you to grab a journal. You know, I wish we would have said that on episode 1.
Pen or crayons.
Because there are things that we're talking about here that you're going to want to reflect on later. There may be things you want to jot down, things that you hear us say, or maybe even the Holy Spirit speaking to you through one of our episodes. You're going to want a journal and a pen to take notes.
Studies show that if you write down what it is that you're learning and then you process that, you will get way more value out of this.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with a small conversation or a small paragraph that you wrote.
Can I start with gratitude instead?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I want to start with gratitude for you. I have several. Start with one. I want to go backwards. I want to go backwards to a couple weeks ago where I just wasn't feeling very well. We were in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, and I was having some challenges with my stomach.
Yeah.
I felt lethargic and I just didn't feel well. And I really appreciate how you supported me and helped me and very caring and loving. And I really appreciated that because I didn't want to feel that way. And man, it was there for me. And in the past hasn't been that helpful for me to be sick around you. And I know that's a completely different story for a different day of my victimhood.
Yes.
But I just wanted to give gratitude for
Thanks.
you.
Thank you. It was an honor to take care of you when you're not being a victim.
Yeah.
And I can tell you're really sick and you're struggling. And then I want to really come alongside you and love you and support you.
Thank you.
Yeah. My gratitude for you is just thank you for treating me like your number one priority after God and taking care of my heart. I really feel prioritized in our relationship. And there was a time that I didn't feel that way. And that just gives me so much gratitude for where we are now and how hard you've worked to be my king, somebody who I want to serve, somebody who I want to look up to, the leader of our family. And it all starts with how you nurture my heart and take care of me. So thank you.
Wow. I received that. That just filled me up. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You know, it's interesting. I was going to take it away from you for just a second. It's interesting that in marriage, in relationships, how would you know? How would someone know what you think about them if you didn't tell them?
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know unless people tell me the impact.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
All right, so you're going to read from a small paragraph that you wrote about friendships during the season of addiction, depression, and isolation that you were in, that we talked about in the previous episode. So let's go ahead and jump in. You start reading.
As I do this, I want you to think about your friendships. Think about your 3, 4 closest friends, the people that you would call a very close friend. Think about the quality of them, how the interactions that you have. Just get a good grasp of that as we're going to go through this episode. Friends were not something that I've ever had until recent years. I had acquaintances that I would hang out with, but never could be my true self. I guess you could say they were more drinking buddies than friends. As I reflect back to these friends now, I couldn't tell you what any of them were deeply struggling with. We didn't talk about their past hurts or what was important to them in their lives. I have no idea what we really talked about. Possibly hobbies, other people, guns, hunting, cars, women, and sports. All superficial things that I've come to realize really do not matter in life. I could not talk to them about what I was really going through in life. My problems, fears, and emotions I was experiencing.
Yeah. You getting connected to what that was like, having friendships like that? Because it's been a while.
It has been a long time. I can't really get connected to that. I have this, like I can go back and think about what those relationships were like, but in my heart, I can't get really connected to it.
I was thinking about the same thing, and because I definitely relate to all of what you said there. I mean, they were not friendships that were lifting me up or being life-giving or anything like that. In fact, I wouldn't even say that I was connected with them. And I think it was just empty. And that's why it's hard to really get connected, is there's nothing to get connected to. There was nothing there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to share, because when you hear me talking, this is not my friend's fault. This is me. Like, this is how I'm showing up as a person that I would have these type of friends. Mm-hmm. Like, I am choosing not to allow myself to be known to these friends because of this emptiness that you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to kind of paint the picture of the kind of friends that we were to other people. And I want you to really be looking at yourself as well as the friends in your life. And do any of these behaviors or ways of being show up for you? One of the things that, I mean, all of these, by the way, are toxic behaviors. None of these are good. Okay. We were gossiping.
This is the way we lived our life.
Yeah. There was a whole lot of gossiping about other people going on.
Sometimes we would call it a prayer conversation.
What do you mean by that?
You know, the pray about them. So we talk about them, talk about their problems, talk about their issues in a gossiping sense, but never really take it to the Lord in a real sense to pray over issues of our friends.
Yeah. Yeah. That's common in the church circle.
Yeah. Lots of gossiping.
Yeah.
Surface level friendships where it never went deep.
Yeah. Being critical and judgmental. Not being supportive. Caring more about what someone is benefiting me than what they are bringing. How do I want to say that? Seeing more friends as benefits, that I'm going to get a value from you. That's why I want to be friends.
Yeah, maybe their status, maybe their finances or something like that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I had that too.
Yeah. We try to fix people all the time.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most unhealthy parts of the relationship from my point of view is I have opinions. And I want to share them with people, especially if I feel like I can fix you. I have this magical sense that I think in my mind that I know how to live your life better, or I know how to fix you in some way.
I've got the solution and the advice for you.
Yeah, and man,
I thought I had so much good advice for people. And I always wondered why they didn't appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of pride in that. There's very little humility in that thought process.
Yeah. Well, it was all about me and what I could offer,
Right.
not what they were going through.
Drama and chaos, I think, would really define a lot of the stuff we lived in. Lots of drama, lots of chaos with friendships.
I loved to talk about the drama that was going on in my life,
Yeah.
to just create conversation.
That's what we would talk about. Friends would come over, and we would end up just drinking and talking about other people that weren't there.
Yep.
Absolutely horrible.
Yeah, so here's some other things that will help you identify unhealthy friendships. And these are huge red flags. Being a taker, not a giver. Fixing all your problems. We already said that. Manipulation, gaslighting, giving you a guilt trip for something that they want. Constant drama, broken trust, causing emotional exhaustion. Let's just pause there for a minute. Have you ever had a friend and you see their name show up on your phone and you're like, oh,
this is going to take a little bit more energy than I have.
What are they calling for? Oh, they're going to drain me. I just know it. Oh, I'm so glad that's part of our past. I mean, that's in our past, no longer part of our life. Being a negative influence. What about walking on eggshells around a friend? Have you ever been there?
Yes.
I've experienced that.
Yes, and I was that friend to people too. They walked on eggshells.
Yeah. And here's why red flags really matter. And this is why we really wanted to bring the topic of friendships up, is because our friends have an impact in our life. They can damage our self-esteem or my self-worth and what I think about me if I am easily influenced. And we were back then. I mean, our friends influenced us in all kinds of negative ways because we didn't know that all of these things were unhealthy.
Everybody has the ability to influence someone else around them. Here's some examples. If I were a fearful person and I was exuding fear when I talk to people, fear is contagious. They're going to be more likely to be fearful. If I'm a faith-filled man, and as I'm going about life around my relationships, I'm speaking faith into people, I'm speaking hope and joy and life into people, that's contagious and that has an impact on people. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is the closest friends around us, there is an impact that is being put onto us by having them in our lives as our friends.
Yeah.
They're impacting our lives.
Yeah, in a really huge way. They can hinder our growth. Like toxic friends can keep us from seeing what it is God is wanting for our life.
Yeah.
I think you and I back in that time, we were really looking for God. We just didn't know how to find him. So we were going to church. We were, hearing the message every Sunday. But then we would get around our friends and they would just influence us a totally different direction.
Yes.
And I'm really able to see how friends have such a huge impact on me when I'm not whole and complete, to influence me in all kinds of directions that keep me from actually hearing what God wants for my life.
Yeah, I think that's a good litmus test to ask when you're looking at these friends. You know what? Let's use your diagram you had between the triangle, God, and the Satan and the person in your life. You want to use that triangle? Remember that one? How you're going to put them on either side? Do you want to do it?
You mean, do you want me to explain it?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. So Adele has this concept. I'm going to do my best because it just popped in my mind as I'm saying this, and maybe you can help me. But let's just put your friend on this line, and over here is God, and over here is Satan, the evil one. And there's only two kingdoms. There's a kingdom of darkness and the kingdom of heaven. So we're honoring one of the two kingdoms. And let's put your friend in this line. Are they leading you closer to God?
Speaking truth and
life,
yeah.
They're honoring you, and they have their best interest for you, and they're looking out for you, and you're important in their life. Or are they leading you in a direction toward evil, maybe through your choices, through the words that are spoken out of your mouth or out of their mouth? Or are they leading you that way? I think that's a good litmus test.
Yeah. Yeah, and if they if they are leading you towards darkness, is that someone that you really want impacting your life? Those are things we never looked at. before. We never just took a moment to say, let's evaluate our friends. Let's just see, where are they taking us? Where are we going with them?
Well, I never heard from somebody to evaluate my friends, or at least it never sunk into me to evaluate my friends.
What
I've
is
heard it said that you are the sum of your 5 or 9 closest friends. I don't know the stat on that, but you are the sum total of that.
Right, meaning you're all alike. And we attract the people that are like us, too.
Right.
So if I'm showing up as toxic, I'm attracting toxic.
Yeah, social media is just proof of how algorithm works and the human mind works.
Isn't
we will
it?
get people, we want to be around people that share our common opinions, and I don't want you to disagree with me. So we want those type of people in our lives.
Yeah.
So it really is. Let's go backwards a little bit. Let's go back to what I mentioned about my friendships, because we could think about this as a way of we need to get rid of our friends. And I don't want you to hear that as I'm speaking. I don't want you to hear that what we need to do is reevaluate our friends and get rid of our friends.
Sure.
What I would love for you to do is reevaluate your heart. Mm-hmm. Reevaluate your heart and who am I being in this life that has me being this type of friend to these other people, because you can be an influence to these friends as well. Mm-hmm. I said earlier, faith is contagious and fear is contagious. And, I can't think of where it is in Proverbs, but it's very clear that out of the heart is the wellspring of life. Like the things that we do come from our heart.
And say. Mm-hmm.
And then, I think this is in Isaiah where it talks about, humans. We look at people's actions and we look at people's motives, but God looks at our heart. Mm-hmm. He really sees what's in our heart. So that's what I would really hope we get out of this is who am I being to these friends?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important that if I'm seeing, okay, I'm not being the right kind of friend, how do I start to shift and change that? Because here's what we found is when we had a change in our life and we started showing up as this transformed person,
yeah,
it didn't sit well.
It's uncomfortable on the other side.
All of our toxic friends are kind of who are you? What are you even talking about? We got that a lot. And so I think it's important to know that sometimes our friends that were there for us for one season may not be with us in the next season.
That's right.
Because there's constant growth happening in all of us as individuals, but some of us are growing at different rates. And the people who were in our life back then, they were there for our life in that season. Mm-hmm. But they didn't follow us to the new season that we were headed to, and that's okay.
It is okay. I want to give a caveat in there. It is really important of who you be about that conversation or who you be about moving from friendship to friendship, because these friends are going to come and go. I like your analogy there, Adele, where you're talking about, this season and another season, the friends may not follow. Mm-hmm. But it's who you're being in that is, I would recommend, or I have you consider how you are letting go of these friends. There's proper and healthy ways to move from friendships.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a lot about that in just a minute. But first, I want to talk about something that we discovered several years ago about the importance of having what Ted Cunningham calls as backup singers for our marriage. That is friends that are there to support our marriage and support us individually towards truth, towards God, towards each other, seeing each other from God's perspective, mentoring, giving godly wisdom, things like that.
Yeah, it's important to have those backup singers in our life, in our marriage. You know, I love how Ted talks about that. And I have this visual of like an 80s band where the singer's up front and they have all these backup singers behind them, supporting them. And that's exactly what we're talking about, is people that are behind you and supporting you, and they have the best interest for you, and they want to see you win in life, and they're there to walk alongside you during all the seasons.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk about, why is it important that we have deeper connections with friends? And how does it help our well-being?
You know, in Genesis, when Adam is raised by God, and they have this beautiful relationship with each other. It's the two of them, and there's animals, because Adam has had the chance and opportunity to name these animals, and God is able to see, you know, it's not good for a man to be alone. Mm-hmm. And so he creates a woman to be with him, to have relationship, to share in life. And I believe God created us to share in his work. And I believe that he created other humans to share alongside in this work. And community is the basis of that. Community, having social interaction and people around us, is the basis of that. And that's really the definition of the big church, is people, us, who are just following Jesus Christ and his teachings and his methods, and doing it in a way of, you know, we're on this path together. Mm-hmm. And I think the community aspect of having relationships and friendships done the right way, which I would suggest it comes exactly the way that God would teach us to do that, and that is to honor each other, to be life-giving to each other. And in Proverbs, it's iron sharpening iron. That is truth and grace within a relationship, being able to speak truth and grace to our friends.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we even talk about like trust inside of a friendship, because for me, I did not trust other female friends.
Yeah.
Because I knew one day they would stab me in the back. That was my belief. And I think I even said that to you. I don't want to get deep with people. They'll hurt me.
And I'm curious, did that ever happen?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, people I was hanging out with were not trustworthy or safe people for me to be putting my heart out there to share like that. And I think that's really tricky for people. Like, how do I know? Can I trust you as a friend? Can I start to share deeper? Mm-hmm. And so let's just talk about, what are some ways that people can develop trust inside of a friendship?
Yeah, I think there's two things there that you're talking about. One, I like your idea. Let's talk about how to develop trust. But I think there's an underlying thing to talk about there, and that is a healthy mindset to begin with. Because you were very clear in what you said. Is the reason I don't want to get close to people is they will stab me in the back.
Right.
And that's why I said, did that happen? Because that's exactly what will happen when that's your mindset of people are going to stab me in the back. Guess what? Yes.
Because I'm going to show up like they're going to stab me in the back.
And they will, because of how it's all perceived. But I think there's something else there, and that is developing a healthy mindset. Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, and renewing our mind daily into what God has for us, instead of lack and fear. Lean into faith and hope.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive into that.
Yeah. So, thanks for saying that, because the mindset is the first step of transforming that. And I'm going to show up as a healthy, safe friend. Other people are going to also show up that way as well. Yes. Because of who I'm being.
That's right.
Yeah. So one of the first ways is, it's not like you need to just run and this big grand gesture, I want to go deep with you. It just starts really small with little things here and there. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is vulnerability-based trust. That when I'm showing up vulnerable and it's transparent and authentic, and I'm not just like saying something to get a rise out of somebody or whatever.
Manipulative. And
it's authentic. Like I'm really sharing something I'm going through. The other person on the other side will have this sense of, oh, they're human. They have problems. They're not perfect. Because that's what keeps walls up is you're better than me and you think you are and you're not safe for me. Mm-hmm. So then nobody shares. Right. It just stays surfacey and boring. But when we really start to have that deep, rich relationship where there is vulnerability on both sides, that's where that trust and safety really comes in. And that is a healthy relationship, a healthy friendship.
Exactly. Yes.
And then two, trust is built on consistency, being consistently showing up for that friend.
Right.
So if I am not showing up like I say I'm going to, and I'm not in integrity, then it's important to clean that up with your friends.
Wouldn't that be confusing, if you weren't consistent in how I show up in life? So it definitely is important, like how we show up. The consistency would come from the authenticity.
Right.
Right? So if I'm being authentic about who I am as a person, I'm going to be more consistent rather than putting up these fake walls that would be kind of confusing. Like I let my walls down one day to you and share vulnerably. The next day I shield it from you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, when we're talking about integrity, like I've had friends that along the way would say, yeah, let's hang out Friday night. And then Friday comes and I'm ready to hang out. And they're like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's do it another time. And it's just kind of like, oh.
That's a normal way of being now in a lot of people. Let's talk about integrity. I think it's really important because in order to be a good friend, we need to have integrity. In order to build trust, in order to maintain trust in your relationship, in your marriage, in your friendships, you have got in yourself, like you want to trust yourself. You need to be a person of integrity. So what is it? It's when your words and your actions consistently line up with who it is you're committed to being in God. And by the way, He has the baseline of who it is you are to be. It's when they consistently line up. And when they don't, and they won't, like we're going to do and say things that are not our best self that we regret. And when they don't, we get back into an integrity by communication, by saying, hey, that thing I said, that thing I did, I was wrong for that. Mm-hmm. I was wrong for saying to you. I was wrong for the way I acted, and I'm really sorry that I did that. Or, you know what, I did promise you that we were going to hang out Friday, and then I was wrong for not following through with that. I didn't put it in my calendar, and I didn't even think about it. I was wrong for that. Get back into integrity. That is exactly how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because when it happens multiple times, now I'm like, I don't want to make plans with you. I'm sorry.
Yep.
You're going to stand me up. You're going to cancel. You're going to forget about me. No thanks. I have other things I'd rather do. So it's really important to be in integrity as a friend.
I imagine you don't feel valued.
Yeah, so now let's talk about what is Jesus's example of friendships. I love this. This is something that we model our own friendships after. And it's a great example that he set for us.
Yeah, let's do it. You want to do it?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I'll do it. So Jesus' example in the Bible is he had his closest friend, John. Then he had his 3 closest friends outside of that. Then he had the rest of the 12. And then, there's the 72, there's the 500 it talks about. But specifically, he had a very close friend. I mean, I can't imagine what that relationship is like, or the relationship he had with the top 3 or the top 12. But
and we're talking about circles here. We're talking about an inner circle.
An inner circle, that's the person.
That's your marriage.
That's that's the person that I am committed to and to share everything with. That there's nothing I
Being
hold
the
back
deepest and the most open and the most vulnerable.
Yeah, in our teaching, that would be your marriage. Your number one priority is always God. Your number two priority is always your spouse. And so that should be the absolute center circle. And then there's another circle, and that's the one I was talking about, where Jesus has these 3 closest friends. And that's an opportunity to have, those are the people that 2 a.m., when things are tough, that's who I'm calling. I'm going to reach out to that person. They know a lot about me. I mean, deep, deep conversations. Those are the people that you just have with you all the time. And, I'm grateful that person, one of the persons for me, is right here across from me right now. As we're doing this conversation on friendships, I'm blown away that I'm doing this, and I'm right here across from you having this conversation. So it's like all in my face of reminding me, the type of friend that I need to be.
Aw, that's sweet. I think it's important to talk about why are those circles important, that we have those. Because if I let everyone into my inner circle, that's actually inappropriate. If I'm married, that's inappropriate. Yes. I should not be sharing with friends like I share with you, because this is sacred, this is special, this is different.
That's right.
And in the next circle where I have my 3 closest friends, let's say, it's important that I share a lot with those friends, and more than my acquaintances outside of that.
Yes, they're your backup singers.
They are our backup singers there to support, speak life, speak truth, pray over us, lead us to God, have fun with.
Accountability would be in that group.
Yeah. Those are my favorite people outside of you.
Yes.
They are our tribe.
Yeah, right.
And we have a really great core group of friends that we have prayed for that hard. Because there was a time when I was before the Lord and I knew we're walking through this betrayal thing, and I'm like, I have nobody. I have no friends to help me through this. And I just started praying, God, bring us friends. Bring us godly friends that will lead us towards you and closer to each other. And I've watched him do that. It's been really cool. Now,
what a great prayer.
Yeah. And now we're living in that, and it is life-giving.
It is. And that is a great level to have. And then there's another level where these are still your friends. These are still your close friends, but they're not as close as the rest.
Right.
They're still people that you do life with constantly. They can be in your Bible groups and your accountability groups, and they can you can do life together and things like that still. And then there's another one, and in that one is going to be more of your, they don't get as deep of access.
Right.
They don't get as deep of an access, and they can come and go, and depending on how they are with you.
Right.
And that could be a family.
Right.
Too.
Right. So true. Sometimes family don't belong in the first 3 circles.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how can we identify which friends go in which circle? I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, like, what is their intentions for their own life? Like, are they following after God? And are they a godly influence in my life is really going to determine how close they can be to me. Because if they are not seeking after God, then I don't want them in a close circle.
Well, let's go back to what I said earlier, is how to be a person of integrity. And the reason I said that is because that's how you build trust. And so to answer your question is, the people that I'm going to have closest to me, they will have their words and their actions will have consistently lined up with who it is they're committed to being toward me. And I see it. I see it in them. Those are the people that get the closest access to me. And the people that do not, they're going to get pushed further out in that circle, because I don't need that in that close proximity. Now, I also want to say this. You and I are a little different because we're called to ministry. And so
Right.
we're sharing everything that we have out. It's
Right.
a little different scenario.
We don't share. Well, we're sharing things that we know people need healing, and our closest friends still know way more about us.
Yes.
And so I see what you're saying, and I also see that we're still doing this. We're still living this
Absolutely.
example of, what we share inside of our
Yeah.
our
Then
groups.
let me repeat myself, or let me talk again. You don't have to be this vulnerable that we are being
Yes.
up here whenever
Yes.
you're sharing.
Yes. Yeah, I would highly recommend you filter those kinds of things. So how we've talked a little bit how friendships change throughout our life stages. How many stages do you think we've been through?
Oh,
I would say at least 5, maybe 6 for myself.
yeah.
It's like every decade.
Yeah, it just reminded me of a butterfly that kind of goes in, like a caterpillar goes in and turns into a butterfly. We've done that so many times.
We have transformed.
Yes. I feel like I'm doing it every 6 months now, 8 months.
Yeah.
I feel like the more I'm doing this, the more I know I don't know. Man, the more I'm learning, I have so much to learn in this world and so much to learn about me and what we're doing.
Yeah.
But my life is, I feel like, transforming all the time.
Yeah. And I know for me, one of the things that I really struggle with is how do I maintain healthy, good relationships when I'm really busy?
I've heard this quote that if the enemy can't make you sin, he'll make you hurry. And that seems to be the life thing that we have, at least in Western world, is occupying our schedule full with activities and family events and kids' sports and all the different things. So how do we maintain good friendships when we have a busy schedule? Here's what I would say. I would say get really clear on what your priorities are in life. I've mentioned before, if God is your number one priority and your spouse is your number 2 priority, you really don't have to worry about a whole lot of things in life. It just kind of works out. God's will work out through and in your life whenever you are connected to him. I know it's Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. And so that's what I think is resetting, having a look at your priorities, like what's important to you in your life, and having those reset. And then start looking at who you're being as a friend to have good friendships.
For me, I didn't even know how to be a good friend or where to start.
Yeah.
So I would love to share for those that are in that place, what are some great conversation starters to get a good conversation going? Because I didn't even know how to be vulnerable with people, much less have them be vulnerable back.
Some of the questions I ask, listen, let's get away from superficial stuff.
Right.
Let's get away from the ball game and the scores on the, I don't even know what people talk about now. But let's get away from the superficial stuff and talk about like, hey, what are you most excited about in your life right now?
I
What's
love that
God
question.
doing in your life? How can I be praying for you? What are some things I can do to support you? If you don't feel that comfortable with them, start off with more softball things like, what kind of hobbies do you do? What do you find fun? I'm looking to do some new hobbies myself. What are some things you found to be most fun in your life? Or another one is vulnerability-based trust. And that is, hey man, I know that you exercise a lot, or you have a lot of hobbies, and I'm trying to figure this thing out myself. What are some recommendations you have for me if I wanted to get started at a gym? Or what are some hobbies that you first found out was life-giving to you? And I wouldn't mind starting those.
All great.
Great ways to have good conversations without talking about, hey, did you see the game?
Right. Right. I am so thankful that that's not part of our conversations. Thank you very much. Let's talk about how do we let go of toxic friends? Because some of you may be watching this, you may be realizing, ooh, I have some toxic friends in my life, and I don't really know what to do about that. Because we have had to go through this as well, where we had toxic friendships that we really needed, and it was important to let go of them.
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways that we can do this. There is one way, I don't necessarily recommend it, but it is a way, is just gradually fading out of their life whenever, just stop attending some of the things they're doing. I think that's not addressing the problem.
Right.
But I think that is a way to do it. Let me say this. Go back to you being the best friend that you can be. People will start avoiding you if they feel uncomfortable with how you're being.
It's true.
You can have direct conversation. My recommendation is direct conversation around boundaries. Specifically, if there's gossiping going on, what I would do is I would pause that conversation, and I would be very direct. Hey, Susie, I know we're talking about Susie. She's not here right now. And I would love to bring her in on this conversation because I think that she would get a lot of value out of this too. Maybe we should bring her into this conversation next time. I think those are great ways to do it. Seek support. Ask other really good friends that you have how they got friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and focusing on new connections too. And that's a lot of what we did, was we were praying that God would bring us new friends. And then we started focusing on how can I connect with them.
I love that.
And it was like all of a sudden our other friends had just kind of fallen away.
Yeah. I think that having a prayer for God to change your heart to be the friend that you are to be, and to bring people into your life that would speak life and encouragement to you, that would be life-giving friends, would be an amazing prayer to pray.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it was life-changing for us to walk in that prayer as well. So just a few things to really consider as well is maybe you need to forgive yourself for the kind of friend that you've been. Maybe you haven't been a good godly friend to the people around you, and you're really seeing that through this. That may be something that you want to look at. And also just be aware of any friends that are manipulating and trying to blackmail. That was something that we also experienced. And if that's going on, that is a sign that this is not a healthy friendship. And so just want to encourage you to really have courage and boldness for the kind of people that you allow to impact you in your life.
I would love for you to share in the comments below what you think about friendships. What would be a good quality friendship for you?
Yeah. And also for your journaling questions that we mentioned, that grab a journal and a pen. This is why. Because we have 3 questions that we want you to really consider is to think back over your friend circles. And have you ever realized, or are you realizing, that maybe one of your friends is not as fulfilling as you originally thought? And if so, just jot down what it is that you've noticed for yourself and what are some signs there that you can see. The next question is, what are some challenges that you currently face in being vulnerable with your friends? And how do you plan to overcome that challenge?
And talking about the circles I did earlier, do you have those in your life? Do you have an inner circle and outer circle? Do you have a continuation of those type of friends in your life? And if not, how would that work for you?
Yeah. Yeah, and then look at what friends need to be moved into different categories, because maybe they're still in your life, but they're just in the wrong category. So that's something to look at as well.
I like that. I like that. We want to thank you for joining us today. We value your time. I know that these episodes are getting longer, but we really value you hanging out with us. We value your comments, just sharing the impact that these videos are having. So thank you for that. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, and next week, just want to share, it is going to be a great conversation about how I almost crossed the line in our marriage. And we're going to talk about the lack of emotional safety and why emotional safety is important. We're going to talk about boundaries and safeguards and how they really protect your marriage. They keep the good in and the bad out. And so you're going to want to tune in for that conversation in the next episode. And we look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah,
Is that
thank you
everything?
for joining us. I think we got everything.
All right.
Thank you for joining us on this episode. We'll see you next time.
Bye. Get over the plant, babe. Good job.
Yeah. How do you feel?
Sweaty.
And it was about me.
Well, we both were chatting, but it's hot in here. Yeah, so how can we identify which friends go in which circle?
I feel like this is the part where I need to be speaking. You quit speaking. This is how we're going to identify those friends. We're going to look at this paper.